Freeport, Illinois,
in the city of Freeport, Illinois,
in the county of Stevenson,
in the county of Stevenson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duty of the office
of Alderman, 4th Ward,
of Alderman, 4th Ward,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much, Judge, and welcome Alderman Parker. Next, we have recognition by Fire Chief Allen. Oh, and for the record, Madam Clerk, could you please note that Alderman Parker has now taken his seat?
Yes.
Okay, we had Deputy Chief Reeser, who has recently retired. We want to recognize his service of nearly 27 years. Go ahead and step up. He was promoted to lieutenant in 2009, 12/31 of 2009, captain in May of 2013, and then district chief this year in May, and then right to deputy chief right away with all the promotions. As you remember, there was a lot of movement and a lot of activity through there. So, you were hired in 1991, served nearly 27 years. It's been a pleasure on my half. I've only known you for about 8 months, and it truly has been a pleasure. And we want to give you this recognition for the service you've given to the community. Congratulations.
Very nice, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Sure, if you don't mind.
It's all yours.
First off, I'd like to thank the city and the people of Freeport. It's been an honor to serve. Thank you to my firefighter family and my supportive family at home. It's been an awesome career. It's truly the best job in the world, and it's great to make it to the finish line. Thank you.
Next, we have a few promotions we'd like to recognize. In the last month, we've had 3 different promotions due to retirements and other movement within the department. So the first one is Lieutenant Mike McKenna. I'll tell you just a little bit about him. Mike McKenna was hired in 1990 and made lieutenant just this year on the 17th of July. He served as a paramedic, a fire officer 1, and was appointed as an EMS coordinator in 2000, so 18 years as an EMS coordinator. And I did that job long ago in my career, but it wasn't nearly that long. And to do it for 18 years, I've never heard of someone doing it that long. So you've seen a lot of changes in the EMS industry, kept our ambulances going, kept our paramedics certified, and for that we thank you because it certainly benefits the whole community. So if you don't mind now, his wife Jolene, if she could come up, and we'll give you his badge and allow you to pin it on. As recognition for your promotion to lieutenant with this plaque. Congratulations. Next, we have District Chief Kurt Timmer. Kurt was hired in 1998, served as a mechanic until 2013, and then made lieutenant in May of 2014, and then promoted to district chief in July of 2018. He has an associate's degree in science, a hazmat technician, and he also is a TRT technician as well. Holds a Fire Officer 1 and a Fire Officer 2. He's licensed paramedic, certified rescue diver. He's a field instructor for the Illinois Fire Service Institute at the University of Illinois. He was deployed for hurricane relief efforts to both Gustav and Ike in 2008, and he's deployed to fight wildland fires, and he is our resident expert on wildland fires. He was deployed in 2008 to the Georgia wildfires, 2009 to the California wildfires, 2010 to Oregon, and 2012 and 2013 to Montana, and then again in 2016 to Montana wildfires. Just last week, he spent a whole week out in Oregon with the National Guard out there, preparing them to fight wildfires. And as it would turn out, on Friday when they finished, they were deployed on Saturday to 2 different fires in California and 1 in Oregon. So Kurt gets around and definitely was able to bring his efforts and training to help the city of Freeport as well. So if his wife Jennifer could come up. She is. Designated. Congratulations. Next, we have Deputy Chief Blair Seneff. Blair was hired in October of 1996, made lieutenant in October of 2010, made captain in June of 2017, and now deputy chief in July of 2018. Blair holds an associate's degree in fire science from Rock Valley College, licensed paramedic, a hazardous materials technician, a Fire Officer 1 and 2, and we appreciate all the work. Blair's serving now as our admin chief, which is all of our code enforcement roles. So we've been getting a lot of training going into that as well. Joined by his wife, Chrislyn and Connor. Chrislyn, and if, Bill, if you could come up as well. Bill Seneff is Blair's dad. He was also a deputy chief with the Freeport Fire Department. There you go, sir. Blair, here's a plaque.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Well deserved. Next, we have recognition of service awards by Manager Crow.
Madam Mayor, we're not done recognizing firefighters this evening. So Derek is, no, he's not here. Okay. Well, Derek, I still haven't gotten this last name right. I know you've told me about Tessendorf. I got it right. There's that. 5 years service. Deputy Chief Townsend, come on up here. So this is recognize him for 25 years service. And I want to congratulate you and thank you for all your service in those 25 years. And I'll let Chief come up and talk.
Congratulations, Chief. 25 years.
Yeah. There you go.
Since I got here, Scott's been kind of my right-hand man. He's someone who, former union president, as I was, and understands the labor contract, now has moved to the management side, and truly has been a good link between the union and management, and can be a bulldog at times, and sometimes that's good. So and is running the operations division as well, so that really helps his knowledge, and I appreciate that. So congratulations, guys.
Okay, next is item number 8, which is the consent agenda. All the items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and be acted as one unless there is something that the council would like to discuss further. Is there anything that a councilor would like to remove? Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of the approval to receive and place on file minutes from the Board of Fire and Police Commission from the meetings of May 22nd, May 29th, and June 26, 2018. Minutes from the Foreign Fire Insurance Board meeting on May 29th, 2018. Minutes from the Planning Commission on June 14th. Minutes from the Building Commission meeting from June 13th. Minutes from the Historic Preservation Commission meeting on June 19th. And minutes from the Liquor Commission on June 21st, 2018. Also is the Liquor Commission semi-annual report to the city manager from January to June, and the letter of resignation from Don Parker regarding the Liquor Commission, Fire Department reports, June 2018, and building permits, July 2018. Also is B, the approval of the finance bills payable in the total of $875,861.77, and the approval of the payroll for payroll period ending in July 22nd, 2018, in the total of $480,990.05. Is there a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passage of the consent agenda?
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
And Parker.
Aye.
And that is approved 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 9 is a second reading of ordinance 2018-39. Could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance of the City of Freeport amending Title 6 Administration, Chapter 236 Accounting and Finance, and Title 10 Employment Provisions, Chapter 288 Officers and Employees Generally of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Freeport, changing the Office of Finance Director to a position.
Manager Crowe, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, Madam Mayor, this is strictly, other than just, this is strictly an administrative change. It does not change Director Bukas's position within the city.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
And Parker.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 10 is moved to the next regularly scheduled meeting. So item number 11 is the second reading of ordinance 2018-41. Could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance amending Title 4 Legislation, Chapter 220 Council, Section 220.10 of the Codified Ordinances of Freeport regarding rules of council.
Thank you. Attorney Zito, would you like to make any comments?
Attorney Sosnowski would, yes. Thank you.
That would be correct. I'm very sorry.
No problem at all. I'd like to address a couple of the comments that were made by the gentleman who spoke during public comment this evening as it relates specifically to the language in Ordinance 2018-41. You'll note in subparagraph 23, the following language is what was referenced in public comment, which is any person making personal, impertinent, abusive, profane, or slanderous remarks who shall become boisterous shall forthwith be evicted by the chamber by the chair. The chair will preserve order and decorum. The chair reserves the right to halt or suspend the public meeting to a later date if the rules are not being followed. One, I'd like to point out that that is the existing language that has been on the books for as long as we were able to go back and look at your public comment ordinance. So this is not new language to you as a council. It has been in your rules for some period of time. Secondly, in my legal opinion, this language does not in any way, shape, or form abrogate the law, nor does it fall in conflict with the recent non-binding letter that we received from the Attorney General's office. There are two types of public forums throughout the United States. There are traditional public forums where speech is typically allowed in in any way in which that speech comes, and that is in an area in which it wouldn't normally be regulated by the government. In our parks, on sidewalks, on streets, that's an area where typically speech is without regulation. Then there are dedicated public forums, such as this, a city council meeting, where a government entity, once they open up the public forum, they allow some limited or dedicated involvement by the public in that meeting. The speaker, of course, enjoys the full protection of the First Amendment. But when we look at the First Amendment, you should know that while the content of the speech may not necessarily be restricted by the government, it is certainly well settled by the United States Supreme Court that certain issues are not protected under the First Amendment when certain types of speech are made. And those would be what I'm referring to as obscene language, fighting words, defamatory statements, which is why you see that language in your ordinance. The U.S. Supreme Court has already ruled that obscene language, fighting words, defamatory statements, profane language, that's not protected First Amendment speech. So the fact that that language is included in your ordinance and gives some authority to the chair to make a determination is actually language that you'd find in most municipal public comment ordinances throughout the state. And in fact, someone has to be in a position to make that determination during the meeting. And if you remember back to parliamentary procedure, we have the chair ruling on issues involving parliamentary procedure, and that's why you have the chair making this determination as to whether or not the comment is obscene or the comment is defamatory. And if you read the case law, what you'll find is, yes, there is a difference depending on who the individual is as to whether or not something is obscene or whether or not it is a defamatory comment. And what the United States Supreme Court has ruled is that determination will be made by the person of which is designated the chair for in that particular meeting. So again, in my opinion, this particular language of your ordinance, it was not addressed by the letter that we received from the Attorney General's office. I don't see a need to change it. In fact, I think that it is very similar to other language that I see in other municipal ordinances, and it's certainly within the realm of the chair to make the determination as to whether or not a comment is profane or obscene. In fact, at your council meetings, you have legal counsel present to assist in advising the chair as to whether or not a comment reaches the level that is required. It is not as if these words are there with hollow meaning. There are many Supreme Court cases, and I'm sure that Alderman McClenathan could also agree to this, many Supreme Court cases that actually lay out what certain terms can be obscene or defamatory, and those are cases that we read when we're in law school. So it's not as if this is an issue that has not been tested. And again, I'm certainly willing to answer any questions that you may have with regard to that language, but in my opinion, I don't see a need for a change in that section.
Thank you. Questions?
Mayor,
Alderman McClenathan.
in that vein, there were, in the advisory opinion, certain recommendations that were laid out. And if I recall correctly, one of them was they suggested that we allow individuals to address the council members individually rather than as a whole. And they suggested we review our ordinances. In this ordinance here, do we address both of those aspects that were in the recommendations?
Yes, you'll see in the draft in front of you the statement, all remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. That language has been stricken. I will also advise you that I have shared some information regarding our recent letter that we received from the Attorney General to the Illinois Local Government Lawyers Association, and there are some communities that have similar language in their ordinance, and they do not plan to change it.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
I know there was some discussion on this last week, or the last meeting, and I wasn't there. Could you kind of give me a once-over of where we started and where we're at, and what have we really changed in this whole thing? If that would be easy to,
Sure, I can do that. So at a meeting several months ago, an individual from the public was addressing the council and was referring to individual members of the council personally. And at that time, the way that your ordinance for public council or for public comment read, that would be a violation of the rules of public comment. At that time, the chair appropriately raised this issue to the individual. The individual was not disallowed from making any further public comment. And in fact, the individual continued making the public comment that he wished to make, and the meeting moved on. Later, a request for review was filed with the Illinois Attorney General's office, which then resulted in, several months later, the advisory letter that the city of Freeport received, in which the individual, the assistant attorney general from that office, came to the conclusion, again, we're talking about one lawyer, came to the conclusion that that language was questionable, and that the language regarding the ability to address a member of the public body personally, that language was questionable, and that the city of Freeport might want to consider revising its ordinance, again, an ordinance that has been on the books for some time, may want to revise that ordinance to remove that language. We were then requested by staff and by the city council to draft the ordinance, and that is what is in front of you now. Is the change to the ordinance allows an individual to directly address a member of the city council, which in fact occurred even this evening, and there was no, obviously the chair didn't object to that at that point in time.
follow up?
Yes.
So the magic word in this and the magic thing is to personally. To talk to someone personally, address someone personally rather than the whole council.
That is correct.
And in our new ordinance, it does not allow a person to address someone individually, is that correct?
In the new ordinance that is before you, it would allow a member of the public to individually address a council member or individually address the mayor. Correct.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
thank you. Attorney Zito, I did
Either one is fine. I'll answer to either.
The previous ordinance that was put in place, from as far back as we can look, it's looking like those rules were put in place well over 20 years ago.
That's my understanding, yes.
And at the time, the mayor appropriately applied the rules that were in place 20 years ago that nobody in this body put in place. Correct?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And an advisory opinion by one attorney suggested that we expand to change it from group to individual, which we're doing so.
That's correct.
Okay. So in the event that there is an objection that is raised by an alderperson to where some member of this body does not agree with the mayor's opinion on somebody ruled out of order, this body would have the ability to vote on that and overrule that decision with a majority vote.
Absolutely.
So in a committee of the whole, where we have alderpersons rotating, if there was an objection of the present chairperson, that could be raised, and that same body could overrule that decision.
That's correct. That's parliamentary procedure.
Okay. So I think we have a situation where somebody doesn't understand parliamentary procedure. I make a motion that we adopt this.
Thank you. Actually, we don't need a motion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of ordinance 2018-41?
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
And Parker.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 12 this is the first reading of ordinance 2018-42. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance amending Title 8 Parking, Chapter 480, Parking Generally, Section 480.22, Courtesy Zones, 15 and 30-minute parking zones of the ordinances of Freeport.
Director Carr.
Yes, we were given a phone call several times by Generations Boutique. They were hoping to get their own personal parking spot. It was misspoken to them that they could pay for a parking spot with their name on it. And instead, after talking to her, what we had come to an agreement with her is I would approach council with the idea of putting in a 30-minute parking spot at the corner of Chicago and Main. It's the northeast corner. Per the ordinance itself, it's considered block 46 and then one space on the west side nearest Main Street. That's kind of hard to follow. So it would be the northeast corner of Chicago and Main. She had asked for a parking spot. There's currently a 30-minute parking spot across the street. But I believe, if I remember right, there's an insurance agent on that corner who every day will park their vehicle in front of Generations Boutique. And she would like us to add this parking spot to aid with her clientele, which is of the older generation. And so this would allow them to easier access her business.
And right now, it is a 2-hour?
Right now, I don't think it's signed at all.
There's currently not any signs in front of Generations.
Any questions?
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
make a motion, we move it forward, and I'd like to request, is this time sensitive, or we should suspend the rules tonight, or next meeting be sufficient?
Next meeting is fine.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney. Is there any further discussion?
Yes,
Seeing-
Your Honor.
Yes.
So if I get it straight here, there's a downtown, then you have a 15-minute parking, you got 30-minute parking now, and 2-hour parking, and 24-hour parking is with all the whole city. So you're gonna have 3 different ordinances for enforcement if this passes, is that correct?
Could you repeat that?
That is correct. You'll have a 15, 30, there are some 30-minute spots already down there.
There is.
Yep, and there are 2-hour spots, there are 15-minute spots.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Director, have we, Ted, has he had an opportunity to kind of weigh in on the proposal?
Is that the insurance agent?
No, that would be the
He's
person
the
in
ticket
charge
guy.
of.
He's the public service
Yeah.
officer.
Are we, is he in agreement? I mean, there's probably nobody that knows downtown parking better than him.
Oh, that's absolutely right. I had a chance to talk with Ted about this, and he didn't think that'd be a problem to monitor this as well.
Good.
Thanks.
Okay, then before you is the motion for the passage, or no, I'm sorry, that's not correct. It is a motion to move it forward to the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Next is item number 13, is the first reading of ordinance 2018-43. Could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance granting a special use permit to allow for the operation of an outdoor amusement establishment or kiddie park or similar amusement center for property located at 11 East Douglas Street.
Thank you. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. On July 26th, the Plan Commission met to conduct a public hearing on the application of the Freeport Art Museum requesting special use permit in a B2-1 district for the operation of an outdoor amusement establishment, kiddie park, or similar amusement center. The proposed use of the property would include lighted walkways, interactive design elements, and a children's splash pad. The Commission received the staff report and offered the opportunity for public comment and testimony from the petitioners. Having reviewed the evidence and there being no state objections to the petition, the Plan Commission voted 6-0 with 1 abstention to recommend approval of the special use permit.
Thank you. Discussion.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. Director Bucus, is this just for a short-term event?
No, this is going to be a permanent park. This is what's been called the Art Park.
Okay, follow-up?
Yes.
And so the Art Museum is planning on paying for this, or is this grant money?
So the Art Museum has a combination of grant money, plus they received a anonymous donation of $500,000. The goal is they need $1 million to put it to finish it. They currently have a little over $650,000, and they are doing other sources to raise the money. This is all private money. Public, the only thing we're doing for them from the city is for in-kind services is connecting the water and sewer that is required for the park.
Okay, one more follow-up, Mayor.
Yes.
I want to thank you for that information because that's something that our public will be asking us. And I think this is a wonderful thing for Freeport. I had one more question. I don't remember what it is. Hopefully somebody else will think of it. Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
as on top of all that, with the funding and stuff, upkeep of this park, that will also be the Art Museum's responsibility as well, that the city would not be responsible for that?
That is the current direction. They are considering asking the park district to take over the park. But currently it's set up to do the art museum, to do the maintenance on the park.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
make a motion, we move it forward.
Second. Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Is there any drawing of this, or what the thing even looks like, or how much does it cover of that, or?
So what do you have the rendering?
I do.
It's all that green space on the corner. Are you familiar, Tom, where it's at?
So the winter construction has been hired by the art museum to do the initial architectural designs, and the engineering work is being done by Fairgram.
It's located next to the post office, right across from the library.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker.
is this the same design that was presented to us?
Yes.
Probably 2
Quite a
years
while.
ago at the old building?
Right.
Some of the changes are is the splash pad there, and that was one of the things. So when they came to us and we're recommending connecting the splash pad into the sewer system based upon they wanted initially a recirculating system, and then one of the discussions is whether or not to put a water meter on that. And the issue is we are concerned about if it goes into the storm sewer, what the impact is on the Pecatonica, because it's not a controlled environment. So that's why we've asked them to put it into our straight sewer system.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. And Director Bucus, at the public hearing, was there anything that was negative said from the public, or was there a public body that showed up?
There was no public there.
Okay. Well, that answers that question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Clanathan, to move ordinance 2018-43 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. So we will move on to item number 14, which is the first reading of ordinance 2018-44. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance amending Chapter 242 Fire Department, Section 242.11, promotions of the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport regarding promotions for employees within the City of Freeport Fire Department.
Chief Allen.
What this ordinance does for the fire department, it does a few things for us. Number one, we've had some recent issues with no current list for district chief, and we've had to move to appoint somebody outside of the normal promotions that we normally do. What this does is it lowers the number of years you are below the district chief level, so you essentially have to serve 3 years in rank as a lieutenant prior to testing for district chief. That's pretty high, as around the state, everywhere else, that's kind of high. Usually it's if you're off probation within that rank, you would then be eligible for the next rank for promotion. We think 1 year is a happy medium, so if we can lower that to 1 year, we can go forward with a test now and have eligible candidates that are able to test for that. In addition, it allows for some of the educational standards to be increased for some of the lieutenant's ranks. In the past, we've had to have 3 of the 5 Fire Officer 1 courses. This would take it on up to having all 5 at the Fire Officer 1, and then also for the district chief rank for them to attain a Fire Officer 2 level courses. All these are college credit courses. There's 5 courses that you take for the Fire Officer 1, 5 for the Fire Officer 2, and this will up the standards then for the fire department internally. And the last part is just some language cleanup for the deputy chief as well, because there was a little nuance in there that as you read it, You have to be 3 years in rank as a lieutenant to be eligible for a deputy chief, or 1 year as a district chief. So essentially, you could have had somebody who was a lieutenant for 5 years, gets a district chief position, and then all of a sudden becomes ineligible for that next rank. So we kind of cleaned up that language as well. That's the meat and potatoes of the ordinance as of now.
One thing the council needs to understand too on this thing is the state has changed the promotion requirements at a state level to for fire chief. And one of the things that's going forward is they are requiring the fire officer 1, fire officer 2, and fire officer 3 courses before you're even eligible to be promoted. So by building this into the ordinance, we are now requiring them to meet, we're meeting the state requirements. It's those 3 courses and an associate's degree or and 10 years in the service in the current fire department, or those 3 courses and a bachelor's degree without the service.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Chief, I can understand why you've done this, because when I was on the department, I became wrapped up in this, I guess you would say, because we had an opening for captain with no captain, and nobody. I was a senior lieutenant at the time, and I was 10 months away from being eligible to test for captain. So, but the main question I have is shortening the time frame and stuff, and increasing the requirements for education and stuff. Is there time enough built into this for them to be able to get the certifications? Because having been through Officer 1, Officer 2, that takes quite a bit of time. So is there enough time built in here that they're going to be able to achieve these certifications prior to being eligible to test?
Everybody that has 7 years or more is eligible to test for lieutenant. And of those people, we only have 2 right now that would be eligible to test for lieutenant that haven't completed their classes yet. One of them has 28 years, and I believe another one has 12 years. These courses come on a rotation. They're readily available. Fire department itself, through foreign fire tax and sometimes out of our education budget, provide monies for certain individuals, and it goes by seniority. So these classes are available, have been available, and the 2 that do not have the certifications, this fall the classes are being offered at Rock Valley, and I know we've offered to pay for at least one of those courses for each of them out of the foreign fire tax. So the courses are available. You know, it's a matter of, if you wanted to take all 5, you could complete them easily in a year. But you know, it's however people want to gauge their career and how they want to promote and go through it. So these classes are available, and they should be available also this fall for those individuals that don't have it.
Okay, thank you. One more follow-up, Mayor.
Yes.
With the current situation and stuff, do we need to expedite this, or having it passed next meeting will be sufficient?
Next meeting will be fine.
Okay, motion to move it forward.
Second.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
just a question, if I could, Chief Allen. As pay does not change in your rank, and in your field until you change ranks, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make it out because I know when I was in education, it was one of these things that if you picked up X, Y, Z, and all these up along the line, you were also picking up dollars and cents, and that was my question. But it sounds like it's what it really comes down to, it's a plan to move young, aggressive people forward that would like to move up the ladder to have their courses done early on and be eligible for things.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Parker.
It sounds good to me on the face value. I'm just curious, did the Police Fire Commission weigh in on this ordinance?
They will. We talked to them last month about this. It has to be passed on the ordinance, and then we'll have to change the bylaws following this process.
So they had any questions or opinion on it, or?
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker, to move ordinance 2018-44 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Could I just bring up one thing, because Alderman Parker brought up a great suggestion there. Will they see this before we get it next time?
No, the meeting is the last Tuesday of the month, so we would already have our third council meeting by then, or second council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item number 15 is the adoption of Resolution 2018-40. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
A resolution of the City of Freeport authorizing the acceptance of the Federal Emergency Management Agency Fire Prevention and Safety Grant Award.
Thank you. Fire Chief Allen.
If you remember back in February, we had applied for Assistance for Firefighters grant. We applied for 3 different items. One was an ambulance radio system and then a command class for our command officers. This is that third part. We did get funding and get the award for the command and control course. It's $12,000. What this will entail is a 40-hour online course for all of our fire officers and then a follow-up, basically a lab, which would be a classroom about for 4 days going over. So it's pretty involved, pretty intense, and it actually allows for a continuing education process for our command officers to go through on best practices that are used throughout the country.
Questions?
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Chief, you mentioned it was 12,000 and there was 10,000, well, almost 11,000 from the grant. This will be coming out of the Fire Improvement Fund?
This actually will come out of our main budget, education and training. We still have money left in there to use that we can use for our match of the grant.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman McClanathan for the adoption of Resolution 2018-40. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
And Parker.
Aye.
That is adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 16 is the adoption of Resolution 2018-41. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
Resolution of the City of Freeport authorizing and approving an airport management and fixed-based operator agreement with Daryl Jansen doing business as Freeport Flight Center at the Freeport Alberta's Airport.
Thank you. Manager Crow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the contract, the approval of the resolution for the contract that we came to agreement. We gave the terms, had approved by council the last time. The one thing that Daryl has had a chance to review this, and we've come to an agreement. Just make sure that everybody's on terms. The one thing that Attorney Zito has put into the contract, which we talked about, is so it has the ability to convert this from a lease to a license. What we've done is we've done some additional research that if we convert it to a license, we believe, based upon his discussion with the state, that we might be able to lower the taxes for us. So Daryl and I have discussed this, and it doesn't change Daryl's contract at all. He's just the licensed operator out there versus the lease operator, and that is the one change that you should be aware. It very similarly marries the last contract Daryl had here with the changes that we have presented to you. He will take over the lease of the fuel truck in the next budget cycle. So, and I'm standing by for any questions.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Major Crow, one observation that those that rent the hangars have is they are not receiving a receipt from the city. What process can we put in place? I don't know that we have to amend a contract, but is there something that can be done so when a payment's being made that a receipt is received?
I'm going to turn this over, because this is a discussion we've had with Director Bucas and I.
Oh, good.
There's no problem with us sending them a receipt. The problem is sometimes they're paying Daryl, sometimes they're paying through PayPal, and then sometimes they come in our office and pay. So, and we've asked people when they come in the office, would you like a receipt? And 9 out of 10 times they say, no, thank you. So if we know who wants a receipt, we'll be more than happy to send them a receipt.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Daryl, you probably have to come to the podium, but do you have any, you work with the Pilots Association, those that rent hangars from you a lot more closely than this body does. Do you have a recommendation on how we can address the receipts? I mean, I know it sounds very basic, but I can't tell you. I bet it's come up 10 times since I've been on the council that.
Right. it's been a problem in the past, and here's been kind of like back and forth. The money was being taken at the city at some point, nobody knew where to pay for it, but we straightened that all out in here. So it's to the point now things are working really smoothly. I have a lot of people who would like to pay at the airport because they're there, instead of coming downtown to City Hall. If they pay me, I write them a receipt, and then I bring the money down to the finance office. Otherwise, those who are, a lot of them are on an automatic payment system that comes through. The other ones are coming through there paying at the finance. They know where to pay now, and it's running very smoothly. So I think we've got it straightened out.
Okay, okay.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Yeah, just kind of expound upon that a little bit. I know a year ago when I got my hangar, Daryl knows what kind of mess it was that I had to run around. I wound up going to 3 or 4 places before I finally found somebody that really had an idea of what was going on. And I know I talked to Manager Crow about this. So you're saying, Daryl, that we have now standardized that and we know where to go to get the hangar, where the paperwork's done and everything. Has that been standardized and streamlined, or is it still spread across the city?
No, it's actually streamlined, standardized. You can get a contract from me, sign it. You can either bring it down to the city yourself, or I turn them all into to Dovey. She's got the list of them, because at the time we had several of them that were somewhat misplaced in the city. We found all those back. So the list of all hangar tenants are up to date, and has been being taken care of.
And Dovey's maintaining them on file, so that if there's any question from any of the 3 of us, we can pull those and as we renew them.
Follow up, Mayor. And I appreciate that, because I know you and I talked about it before, about a year ago when I went to get my hangar, and it was really a nightmare trying to go around and find out. I mean, at that point, I don't think even Daryl knew for sure where everything was at.
Yep.
And it was really a nightmare trying to find it. I'm glad to see that we finally got it streamlined, because if we want to move this airport forward, believe me, if I was coming from out of town looking for a hangar, about the second building I went to, I'm going up in Morrow or somebody else. So I'm glad we got that streamlined.
And they all have the same problem.
Madam
But
Mayor.
it's running really smoothly right now. It is taken care of.
Good,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Alderman Clem.
Motion to move this forward?
Second.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Daryl, there's always been a little bit of frustration, maybe on behalf of those that are pilots, those that rent hangars, and maybe yourself, that there was not a lot of certainty coming from this body as it relates to your contract. So I'm comfortable to see that this is no longer a 1 year, and we're expanding this to a 3-year to give you some certainty, and certainly the city some certainty. There has been concerns that you've raised throughout the years as it relates to maybe some tension that was present several years ago as it relates to hangars that were occupied that are no longer occupied, and that there's some hurt feelings that are within the airport or the pilots association, those that run hangars, etc. Do you believe that this contract accurately identified those problems, but also gives you the necessary tools to properly promote the airport without being with too many impediments? Do you think it does that?
I think
eliminate your concern.
Right now, I think things are running extremely smoothly here. We've established with Mr. Crow and I here to talk back and forth, and said, we don't have to agree, but as long as we can talk, we can straighten things out very well. Without going through the different channels and everything else, things are getting taken care of quickly. And I think, yes, I think we get into this contract and we get moving on it, and here we're going to see the airport change quite well, because we've got some continuity there.
Follow up, Mayor? And Daryl, this body also dissolved the airport commission in an effort to address some of those concerns. Do you feel that that has been a positive change?
It's going to work out real well, yes. Yes, it gives more direct contact. It was delayed before by going through another body and then going through, And then they had to contact, this department and stuff. Now it's more streamlined, and I think we're getting into it right now more in here, and I feel it's gonna go real well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Busker for the adoption of Resolution 2018-41. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
And Parker.
Aye.
That resolution is adopted 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell. Item number 17 is the adoption of Resolution 2018-42. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
Resolution of the City of Freeport authorizing and approving a master service agreement with the Illinois Department of Innovation and Technology.
Thank you. Chief Barklow.
Thank you. This is basically the second tier of our LEADS state line service that allows officers to utilize the state line or the state law enforcement agency data system. We call it LEADS. This is where we access information from driver's license information for wanted persons, for property. This is replacement of our current master service agreement to reflect the changes in the network infrastructure. Basically, the state is retiring their T1 network that use the LEADS. So this is the second one. This is kind of the second tier. The first one we approved took us from the police department to Arrow, and this one now Arrow to the downstate system.
Kurt, did you want to add to that? Questions?
Madam Mayor.
We all know how Kurt likes to speak.
Madam Mayor.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister?
that's the only question I have, Chief. Is there any increase in cost of this, or is this free, or is it already covered?
It is not free. It's actually a reduction of cost. Currently, we pay $483.60 a month for this. And the new rate was negotiated for a 60-month term at $316 a month for this. So it's actually went down. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but
And I want to give credit because Kurt was the one that negotiated this contract, so he negotiated it down. So
Well done, Kurt.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister?
motion to approve.
Second. Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Parker for the adoption of Resolution 2018-42. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
And Parker.
Aye.
That resolution is adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Department head reports. Finance.
Thank you, Hunter. The only thing I have tonight is to inform council that the June and July finance report, as well as the July cash investment report, will be on the next agenda for your review.
Thank you. Public Works.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. After the storms last night, forestry's been kind of busy today, and they will be tomorrow doing some storm cleanup. So they will not be taking down any trees until probably Wednesday. Our animal control officer actually left on bereavement this afternoon, so the next few days we may have some slow reacting per animal control calls, just based off of manpower alone. And then our street department's pretty busy right now trying to prepare the area around cruise night to get that looking good for everybody.
Thank you. Fire.
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Keister.
Yes, if I may, and you probably remember this, a couple of weeks ago in my ward, we had a situation where a tree fell across an alley and into a yard that just missed the house. And what kind of wood did you call that? It was ironwood? You had another name for it.
I can't even remember now.
Anyway, it was a particularly difficult situation because a very large chunk of the tree or the branch was about that much in diameter, hanging across the alley and into the yard. And I want to congratulate you guys. I have heard that you guys did a wonderful job in cleanup and taking that down, and there was no additional damage done. So I thank you for what you did, and so does the homeowner.
I will let them know.
Thank you. Fire.
Nothing else tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Police.
Yeah, just want a reminder that Cruise Night is this weekend, so we'll be out in force. Our sworn officers, also our auxiliary, will be out there with help of Stevenson County Sheriff's Reserve. So it should be a fun night for everybody. So we're hoping for good weather.
Yep. Water and sewer.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Really nothing going on within the last week, just doing the normal business for our residents.
Thank you. IT. And airport. It looks like it's city manager report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple things here. The Float Street project will be going out to bid on the 15th of August. So we will be moving forward with that. That's the replacement of both water, sewer, and then resurfacing of the street from the full length of the street from Galena up. So that'll be a major project coming forward and correct a major issue we've got going forward. The other thing is Rebecca Motley's hired a local woman as her new marketing and tourism. Lou Ann grew up, she's a pretzel, she went to Freeport High School. She went worked in Chicago for many years in various tourism areas and has decided to return back to Freeport. So, and we're in the process of interviewing the membership directors right now, and the advertising is out for both the events coordinator as well as the second admin person, as well as the planner and assistant economic development director.
Okay, thank you. Once again, I'd just like to say congratulations to Don Parker for being seated as the fourth, and we really appreciate all the input and the value that you'll bring to that seat as well. So thank you for taking that seat.
Thank you.
And also, just a congratulations to Pretzel City Kitchen is now open since we met last time. And also just to piggyback onto Chief Barkelow's comments about Cruise Night, it's this Saturday. It starts at 3 o'clock, where there are literally hundreds of cars that will be cruising around and thousands of spectators. So just to be aware of children in the area is going to be important. And also just wanted to say thank you to the many people that have volunteered their time in the downtown area, whether they're business owners or whether they're constituents. And we've even had some church members that have come forward to just help out in making our downtown look better. And also, there's still a need for some volunteers. So if anyone would like to volunteer a few hours here and there for that night, to contact the Greater Freeport Partnership. So thank you. Alderman Busker, would you like to add anything this evening?
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to welcome our new alderman, Don Parker. Thank you, and I hope we will enjoy working with you. I'm sure we will.
I hope so too.
How argumentative are you as a former police chief?
We'll have to wait and see.
I'm just giving you a hard time there.
that.
Welcome again.
Thank you.
Alderman Keister.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to welcome Mr. Parker. I did a lot of work with him off and on when I was on the fire department. He was the chief. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you remember the incident down on Main Street where you and the officers had to save me that one night. I still appreciate that. Second of all, you mentioned cruise night. I understand by invitation, Uncle Sam will be down there directing traffic and doing some other things that night, so, as I understand it right now. And unfortunately, I hope to be able to, most of you know I've been trying to get my pilot's license, and I'd hope to be able to announce by now that I was there. I have passed the written test and everything else. However, my plane decided to have some electrical problems for the past couple of weeks, so we have been delayed. I'm hoping by next month to have completed that.
Thank you. Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Daryl, I'd like to just commend your great work that you've done in the airport. I think we've seen throughout the months of the support you have with the Pilots Association and those that rent hangars from you. And I hope the economic growth that you're anticipating comes to fruition, and I'm sure it will. And I'm pleased to see that this body extended a contract beyond a year, so we don't have to continue to come back to this each and every year, and it offers you and your team some certainty as we move forward. And I'd like to echo the sentiments of my fellow colleagues. Mr. Parker, welcome aboard. This body doesn't always agree, but I think we've found out to amicably disagree when we have to, and I think we all agree we love Freeport, and we're moving in the proper trajectory. And I know your input will be valued and greatly appreciated. So look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Alderman Clem.
Nothing at this time other than to welcome Mr. Parker. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman McClanathan.
Well, I repeat the sentiments of my colleagues as well in welcoming you. And I would just like to also indicate, with Cruise Night, it is a good showcase for the community. It takes a lot of volunteers, a lot of individuals. So if you are in the area and you have some time and you're not already signed up, I'd encourage you to sign up to volunteer for it, because there's usually not a lack of need with the amount of people we have in. And again, it's a great way to showcase our community. So I would encourage you all to sign up.
Thank you. Alderman Ross.
Not too much more than welcome down. We're back together again.
Thank you.
All right, Alderman Parker, now it's your turn.
Just real quick, I want to thank everybody for the support, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think that we can. I've already had some complaints from constituents in my ward, so
What a surprise.
Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah. So, but thank you again. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is public comments. Tommy.
Show you something, Joey. I won this at the Freeport Ramp Wheel Office Thursday.
And how did you win that, Tommy?
I donated money, 120 donation for the.
What a great job, Tommy. Congratulations.
Good job, Tom.
This is coming up too. You want to go to the Mary's Fest?
Oh, yes, I know when Mary's Fest is. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other public comments?
I was coming because my.
Could you just state your name, please, so we have
Okay.
it for the
Hi, my
record?
name is Marjorie Wilson. I wanted to come and ask if we can get some help with our street. It's torn up and it haven't been paved since I've been there in 2003. And also my alley as well. I have grandchildren that plays outside, and the cars come down the alley so fast. I live on Center Street. So I was just coming to ask if we can please get some help with paving the streets. That's all I'm here for. I mean, I never came to a council meeting, and I came and I actually enjoyed myself. So I'll be back.
Well, thank you, Margaret. We appreciate your input on that and your involvement, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public body? Seeing none, we have item number 23, which is the executive session. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to enter into the executive session?
So move.
Second.
A motion made by Keister, seconded by McClanathan. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
McClanathan?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
And Parker?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Diane tried to get a hold of you. Diane Christian. Huh? Diane Christian trying to get a hold of you.